Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Another YouTube live show tonight. John Kurtz with you here. Today, the playoff has gone back to the drawing board. This playoff format battle that the Big 12 was pushed back on, where the Big 12 was at the forefront of not only leading the charge on the 5+11 plan, but actually creating it in the midst of a boatload of pushback from those like Josh Pate, Joel Klatt. The Big 12 has stood its ground, and now this thing is just headed back to, hey, we're going to start from square one. So that is what we will lead with today here on the show. But I also, this is where I got to give a shout out to Big 12 Twitter, man. I got a great analogy from Big 12 Twitter on what has happened here with the Big 12 in the playoff that I definitely want to share with you. And to that end, to make the point that I feel like the Big 12 should be getting more credit than it's gotten for what it has done in all of this. I also have legitimate football to talk to you about here. I've seen now a couple more. One, a direct top 25 poll. Athlon put one out. And another is for the more analytically inclined, Kelly Ford's projections for the Big 12, which offer a wide range of very interesting takeaways and conclusions. But both of them have one team at the top. And if you guys know me very well, you would think I would be very excited about that. And on one hand, I am. However, if we're going to talk about stock reports right now in the Big 12, like who you should buy, who you should sell, where there's value on all this, that's where it gets really interesting. And I think you may be surprised with what I have to say on that. In between there, tough recruiting blow for Iowa State. What does it mean for the entire Big 12, though? That could have some reverberations across the conference. So I want to make sure that that we talk about that tonight here as well. So that's the show. As you file in, please continue to comment. What's up, Travis? What's up, Michael? Thank you for being here and for your kind words, Travis. If you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box in order to do so. Attach a super chat to it, and it will guarantee that it gets read. Plus, it just supports the work I'm doing here on this channel. But fear not, you don't have to pay. You could also do so on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you're not watching live, and I will kick off the next show with your question or comment. But all it takes is just one click, no money at all. One click to like the video, one click to subscribe to the channel. All of that really, really helps me. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. Also, if you subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com, that's ofbnews.com. Or click the link in the description of this video. You can subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, and I would much appreciate that as well. Straight to your inbox twice a week, totally free. It's going to break down the big picture stories like what we're talking about here today and how it affects the Big 12 and nobody else, because you can find Big 10 and SEC stuff everywhere. You cannot find Big 12 stuff everywhere. You can get it straight to your inbox for free. We've got 4,400 plus Big 12 fan subscribers and adding more quickly because a popular one earlier this week about how one Big 12 school has really sent the SEC into a tizzy. Okay. So you can grab that, ofbnews.com. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michael. Michael says he loves the preseason rankings. Hashtag go Cougs. Yeah, Kelly Ford, we'll get to it. Kelly Ford was still higher on BYU than I might have thought with the uncertainty at quarterback. Now, maybe that is because it's hard to bake into a formula what's going on with Jake Retzloff right now if you have just a mathematical formula, right? But if you want some optimism, if you are a BYU fan, I would suggest checking that out from Kelly Ford. I'll show you exactly how coming up later on in the show tonight. But all this talk of the playoff format, right? We are back to the drawing board. So much discussion on both sides, fighting back and forth, fighting behind the scenes between the Big 10 and the SEC, which the Big 12 kind of threw a Molotov cocktail in the middle of and ran away, waiting for the chaos to engulf both of those conferences. Now it's back to square one. So what does it mean? Is this good news for the Big 12? Is it bad news for the Big 12? I think it's high risk, high reward. I think there is huge risk associated with this. But I also think that there could be a really nice reward, depending on what happens here. So here's the latest from Brent McMurphy, one of the best college sports reporters out there, one of the most well-connected college sports reporters out there. Brent McMurphy says conference commissioners have decided to, quote, start over, end quote, on determining the 2026 college football playoff format. Big Ten and SEC initially wanted 4 automatic qualifiers with 2 each to the ACC and Big 12. However, the ACC and Big 12 pushed back. SEC coaches later publicly did not support the 4 automatic qualifier model, instead preferring the 5+11 at-large format. The SEC wants more value given to strength of schedule metrics, something playoff executives discussed. However, a source cautioned even if strength of schedule is supposed to carry more weight with the committee, it still boils down to their opinions on who they think are the best teams. The deadline for finalizing the format is December 1st. So there is some time. There is some time here to actually determine the format, but it does not appear to be moving very quickly, and we don't have a ton of time before the season actually starts. And once the season actually starts, at that point, I imagine it gets much more difficult to get everybody into a room and to talk about this in earnest. So we shall see. The possibility is becoming increasingly more likely that this turns into 2026 is the same thing. They just start the next contract of the playoff under the same format and rules that we have right now, which would be a 12-team playoff. 5 highest-ranked conference champions go in now, thanks to this vote. That is one thing I will say. The Big 12 and ACC caving on changing it to the top 4 teams getting the buys this year could burn them now, because that could sting them 2 years in a row. And then I imagine they would not be getting paid for it either in 2026. Either way, we could just carry over that same format into 2026. That's what happens if they don't hit that December 1st deadline, right? You're just barreling toward this deadline. That's the consequence if you don't do anything there. So Brett McMurphy did a pretty good job outlining this, right? I mean, it was assumed for a long time that the 4-4-2-2 model would just be adopted. And whether it was 1 at-large or 3 at-larges beyond that with a 14 or 16-team playoff, that the bulk of it would be 4 each for the Big Ten and SEC, 2 each for the Big 12 and the ACC. But now, nobody will give in to that. The SEC seemed to, I guess, the thought was be on board with that until Brett Yormark, remember it was reported, Yormark is the one who came to the table with, hey, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to sign up for that. How about a 5+11 model where your 5 highest ranked conference champs go and then everybody else is just at large? Like, you got to earn it every single year. We're not going to guarantee anything to any conferences. Go get it every single year. And once that was floated out there, well, SEC coaches were like, hey, I like that idea. For one, because generally, and they're not saying this because they're fighting so hard against strength of schedule, but generally, we're going to get the benefit of the doubt in any kind of at-large situation. They know that. I mean, despite what they're saying, they know that. That's why it's so ridiculous how hard they're pushing on this strength of schedule thing. They know they already get the edge anyway. But there's also the fact that the coaches didn't want these play-in games that would have come for sure attached to the 4-4-2-2 format, where it means conference championship weekend, 3 versus 6 plays for a spot in the playoff and 4 versus 5 plays for a spot in the playoff. They didn't want to deal with that. Another game, and then you're going into an extended playoff, and what? We're going to end up playing like 16, 17, like 17, 18 games here, potentially. Nobody wanted that. Coaches didn't like that. So it was pretty easy to rally the SEC all of a sudden behind this cause from the Big 12, ACC, Notre Dame, and Group of 6, just for different reasons that everybody is actually there. Where we're at a stalemate is the Big Ten's not going to give in on 5+11 unless the SEC goes to a 9-game conference schedule at the very least. That's kind of table stakes for the Big Ten coming to the negotiating table on that. And the SEC is like, well, we don't want to do that unless we know that we're going to get whatever assurances we possibly can on strength of schedule. So that's basically what's been happening the last few weeks. And it's gotten us to the point where nothing is apparently going to happen. And I guess I'm glad to read what Brett McMurphy said there about the strength of schedule discussion. He said, even if the strength of schedule is supposed to carry more weight with the committee, it still boils down to their opinions on who they think are the best teams. I mean, I like hearing that because it is, this discussion about strength of schedule is so ridiculous for the SEC. I mean, they already get very much so preferential treatment because of exactly that, their strength of schedule. That's why Bama and Ole Miss were legit possibilities for the playoff last year in that final at-large spot. Nobody else, no other 9-3 team from any other conference was going to be considered, but the SEC teams were because of their strength of schedule. So I don't know what it is that they want. Like, if they want guarantees that like an 8-4 SEC team is going to get in over an 11-1 Big 12 or ACC team or something. I mean, or even Big 10 team if it's Indiana. I mean, it really seems like that's like what the SEC is pushing for here. Ridiculous. It doesn't override to that extent. And that's basically what you would be asking for. It's crazy, man. It's crazy how gluttonous the SEC has become with the strength of schedule thing. I will grant them that, yes, they generally are going to have the toughest schedules in the country. They're already getting an advantage for that. They've been rewarded handsomely for it. Ask Florida State about a couple of years ago how that went. And now they want to sit and cry and whine and moan about it. But that's the big tension right now between the Big Ten and the SEC. Big Ten's like, well, we're not doing this. If we play non-conference games, you only play 8, and then it's all going to be at-large stuff, and we have no guarantees. Why would we do that? And I understand why the Big Ten would say that. So we're in a bit of a mess, and now you have to wonder what's going to rise from the ashes, right? There's been all this fighting. Everything has sort of crumbled. What's going to rise from the ashes? Will it still be a 4-4-2-2 model versus a 5-11 model? Will it be some variation? Will it be something totally different? Who's got ideas that they can pitch here? What will make everybody? Remember on the last show, I played you that audio cut from Brett Yormark where he was like, we'll find something I think that's good for everybody. Maybe not great for everybody, but good for everybody. What could be a new format here that rises from the ashes that would be considered good for everybody? That, I think, is one of the questions. Can somebody cook something up? Will it be some other variation of what is already here? I mean, some people have discussed, what if it's a 4-4-2.5 sort of thing for the ACC and Big 12, which I know goes against the whole idea that Big 12 and ACC are standing their ground because they won't sign on the dotted line that they are lesser than the SEC or the Big 10. But if they sweeten the pot enough, does that get them on board for that? I doubt it, but who knows? We'll see with time and perspective. And I don't know. Maybe Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips listened to too much of Joel Klatt. We'll see. Or is there something potentially more sinister here? That is one of the things you have to consider. This is the high risk part of this whole equation is, could Greg Sankey find some way? I mean, the man is always plotting and scheming for some way to just tilt and leverage everything that much more in favor of the SEC and typically by proxy, the Big Ten as well. Will they find something even worse to throw out here? Will they succeed in getting some extra like strength of schedule benchmark? I don't know what that would be, or if it's going to be FPI, or if it's going to be TV ratings like was once floated out there to play some role in this. Could something worse come out of this? I think you always have to acknowledge that is a non-zero chance. Especially, I mean, the SEC and Big Ten have been meeting together about things often enough. You just never know what they could come up with here. So I do think you need to worry about that. But, first of all, you are, no matter what, forced into this position if you're the Big 12 and ACC by simply just defending your honor. If your position, which I understand this position, I think it's probably the right one, even if it's hard. If your position is, we will just not sign away that we're half these other conferences for a myriad of business reasons and not going to put a ceiling on ourselves right now. If you do that, you have no choice but to accept this risk that there could be a temporary format here that comes out that's actually worse for you. That is always out there. Unfortunately, it is. But I will say this. If you have now gummed up the works enough, slowed down the debate enough that we just get another year of a 12-team playoff and the status quo basically in 2026, that is a bit of a win for the Big 12. That is. Because, I mean, it's not guaranteeing you 2 teams in the playoff. You may well still just have one, but it limits the amount of at-large spots that are there for Big 10 and SEC schools. So it limits the amount of teams they could cram in there to make it look even worse, dominate you numbers-wise in terms of who's in the playoff. Status quo is okay. That's okay. Not only because of the effect it has on next year, but then that's one less year that you have to swallow whatever awful playoff format they're going to shove down your throat at some point. Because it's coming. I mean, the Big 12 knows they're going to have to take their medicine at some point, right? Mom's got the spoonful of Sudafed or whatever it is. The airplane's coming. You can't run and hide and keep your mouth away forever. You're going to have to swallow the medicine at some point. But if you can run around long enough that you avoid an entire year on this next playoff contract, well, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. So there are potential advantages here. There are potential advantages here if this just stalls out for now. But keep your eye on it. Keep your eye on it. I mean, the point here, it's kind of like, the old Tupac quote. You see it on t-shirts or whatever, bumper stickers. Trust no one. Trust no one, especially not Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, the SEC, or the Big Ten. Those are not people that you can trust on a regular basis throughout all of this. Okay, let's say hello to Kim. What's up, Kim? Kim says, has to be Kansas State, which is fair, and Iowa State losing that QB has no impact on those with dollars. Okay, back to driving, and I didn't even yell at you. Hey, Kim, I appreciate you. It is all good. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here tonight. And yes, you are correct. K-State's getting a lot of love from these rankings that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, which, has me a little bit conflicted. I'm kind of like, I was kind of looking forward to maybe a bit more of an underdog role this year for the old Cats. And yes, Iowa State lost its quarterback to Alabama, a quarterback commit for 2026. We're going to talk about that. Probably doesn't affect a Texas Tech as much. Iowa State is certainly not one of the schools near the top of NIL money in the Big 12. But if you listen at least to the kid, the quarterback himself, it was about NFL and, the typical things that you would think would be there when you go to Alabama instead of Iowa State. But I do think there are some reverberations across the Big 12. So I will talk about that. But Kim, appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your question and comment. I guess comment, not so much a question, your comment. Our web, what's up, our web? Our web says, John, I have thought that your mark throwing out 5+11 was a poison pill to split the SEC and Big Ten. You know what? And I saw your next comment here too, our web, which I totally agree with you on. Status quo doesn't hurt the Big 12, especially from a money perspective relative to the Big 10 and the SEC. You are absolutely correct. That's another point. I made the point of just like how bad it would look if it's a, 5-11 and it's like 7 SEC teams and 1 Big 12 team. Like that's really tough to swallow just from a perception standpoint, but you're also right just from a financial standpoint. That would help you as well. Status quo is not bad. This is a really interesting theory. People are, why would Brett Yormark ever do this? How could he possibly? I really do think a large part of it is, what he talked about on that Fox Sports Triple Option podcast that I played on Sunday. But I really do think a lot of it is just a simple idea of you don't codify that you are half of these other two conferences for a bunch of reasons. You have to kind of go with the long play here and hope that something works out eventually that will get you a little more even than just being half of those conferences in perpetuity, for the rest of time. But there may be something to this element of it as well. Like, hey, if I can just throw a wrench into all of this, it leaves everybody scrambling and get them fighting with each other because they kind of are now. They really are, man. If you watch like Big Ten and SEC fans going back and forth on social media, there's a lot of that now. See, our web says the SEC and Big Ten look like clowns in this. There's something to that, man. There's something to that. I think the thought for so long was, well, they'll just ram the 4 auto bid thing through, no problem. And here they are. They're having a lot of problems. And I've seen this all over the place. Like shout out to my guy, Greg Flugar, who does a great job with the Peek Around the Corner college football YouTube channel. You should absolutely go check out, go subscribe to his channel. But I've seen him, he's a Big Ten guy. And I've seen a lot of him really going after the SEC over and over again on Twitter. I understand it. If I were the Big Ten, I would probably be frustrated as well. But it's not just that. Then Diego Pavia pops off on a podcast this week, Vanderbilt's quarterback, about how much tougher the SEC is because you don't get to play. Now, this was very funny. Who was it that he dropped? It was somebody in Nebraska, Purdue and Nebraska. I think he threw under the bus. SEC schedules, you don't get the breaks like Purdue and Nebraska, which really, really funny. Really funny. Vandy is now taking shots at Nebraska and how easy of a week it is when you get to go play Nebraska. Chef's kiss. Thank you, Diego Pavia. I'm not sure if I were Diego Pavia, I would have gone and trashed on a bunch of opponents on my schedule like Tennessee on a podcast. But hey, for content perspective and my entertainment, it's been great. So I love that. But yeah, and anyway, I saw that quote gets put out there on Twitter, and it's just like the replies are just, you've got like Ohio State fan accounts getting out there and getting after it. Like you kind of have set this trap up where the SEC and the Big Ten are really, really at each other's throat right now, fighting about this. And a lot of it surrounds like, hey, SEC's not going to go to a 9-game schedule. Big Ten's really top heavy. They've got some great teams at the top. They've won back-to-back national titles, but there is no doubt you have more off weeks in the Big Ten than the SEC, 100% for sure. So it's a very interesting debate. It doesn't seem like one that has an easy solution. And now we're getting closer and closer to the season. So like I said, if you get to the season, nothing's been solved yet, man. I mean, who the hell knows where this actually goes from here? So if that were the strategy, I mean, mission accomplished for Brett Yormark. It has, at least to this point, been a mission accomplished thing. So I think you're really, really spot on here, R Web. We're on a pretty similar wavelength about all of this. If you want to be like R Web and Kim, you can click the $ below the chat box in order to submit a donation, and it will get your question or comment on the show via the super chat, no matter what tonight. So I appreciate all of you who do that. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to leave me a question or comment there, I will kick off the next show with it. So even if you're not watching live, you can still be a part. And it is totally free to support. Just like the channel, subscribe to the channel. All of that really, really helps. I appreciate all of you who do that. So speaking of this, I think the Big 12, what has happened here, not just because it may have been a poison pill to get the SEC and Big Ten fighting with each other to propose the 5+11 playoff format that Brett Yormark did. I also think standing the Big 12's ground here has been a much tougher thing to do than it's getting credit for. I'm a little frustrated the Big 12 is not, at least, even if you disagree with the decision to do that, I'm frustrated the Big 12 is not getting credit for what it's done here by standing up to the 4-4-2-2 model. People have really written this off as stupid and really had this attitude of like, man, there are smart people in the Big 12. I don't understand why they are doing this. I think there should be some respect being paid here, more than there has been to the league so far. And it's a bit frustrating to me that hasn't happened because, I mean, like, if you listen to Josh Pate, if you listen to Joel Klatt, two guys that I have an immense amount of respect for, and I think are as good at their individual jobs in this media sphere as anybody doing it. Absolutely. Josh Pate, in terms of doing like content, talk show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, nobody better right now in the college football space. And Joel Klatt, as a color guy, nobody really better than him right now in the college football space. But man, I mean, they are very stringent on this. Hey, if you sign up for 5+11, there's going to be like 6 or 7 SEC teams in every year. You'll only get one. The gap will grow because of that. And that's it. When you could be having a 4-2 guarantee on that split, you could sign yourself up for that split every single year. Now, they also really like the 4-4-2-2 format because I think they have a point. They claim that it would help out late in the regular season and making some of those games more intriguing, which seems a bit counterintuitive, but it's because you would have teams trying to fight to stay out of the play-in games at the end of the year, the 3-6 matchup and the 4-5 matchup. Because even if you are undefeated in early November, you still got to worry about, man, you dropped 2 in a row. Now all of a sudden you're going to be fighting for your playoff life in a do or die game on a conference championship weekend, which, fair enough point. I think there is something to that. So they have a lot of reasons, I guess I would say, to support the 4-4-2-2 format. But they're also guys who, and I know Joel Klatt played in the Big 12, but they're guys that from a national perspective, they don't really have like a dog in the fight on all this. So it's very easy to say, well, yeah, just take your chump change, Big 12. That's a hell of a deal. You're a beggar out there with a sign on the side of the street. Somebody's trying to hand you $100. Like, just take it. And the Big 12 saying, no, I'm going to hold out because I think I might be able to actually like get a job someday that would pay me pretty well and allow me to, put together a nice life. So I don't need to take this $100 right now. I'm going to wait it out for something better. The thing that I have not heard, now maybe I could be wrong, but I have not heard either of these guys say, but the Big 12 is standing for something here. It's not just complete nonsense for no reason. They're doing this because they don't want to codify that they are one half of the SEC and Big Ten. Because the next time they negotiate a TV deal or any kind of deal, they don't want the bidding to start at, well, you're not getting a penny more than half of what those other leagues make. and they don't want it to, hurt from a recruiting standpoint. Like, well, you guys already admitted that you're just half of what they are. Why would I go play here? It's giving up on what could happen long term. Do the odds look wonderful that you're going to get closer than where you're at right now? They do seem kind of long. I understand, but you can't sign up for that yourself. You can't sign up for that willingly. And I loved this. Shout out to Jack Trice Mafia on Twitter today, because I saw this analogy for what the 4-4-2-2 model actually is for the Big 12 and the ACC, and I thought it was great. So now this actually came in a back and forth with Josh Pate himself, which more on that in a moment. But Jack Trice Mafia said, yes, I've listened to his explanation. The 4-4-2-2 is an absolute mousetrap that I'm so glad the Big 12 didn't fall for. 2 bids looks nice on paper, but would smoke out the Big 12 and ACC's ability to compete over about 10 years. And I even think, I would just say in perpetuity. I keep using that term, but that's because we don't really know how long. I would even argue with Jack Trice Mafia. I don't think we can say, well, put a 10-year cap on it and things would be different then. No, this could like change the course forever, man. That really does potentially alter the course forever of your 2 conferences here. And that is why you don't do it. But a mousetrap is such a good analogy for it, because it's like, hey, look here. Here's some cheese. You guys only got 1 in last year. BYU couldn't get any consideration, even though blind resume tests would tell you they should have. Man, that's tough. That's too bad. Even if it were a 16-team playoff, they would have been 17th. Boy, that's pretty rough. Well, here's 2 every year, and we'll only take 4. So you're guaranteed the split at worst. You got some limits on how bad this can be. Why don't you just take that? That looks pretty good. That's a pretty appetizing thing, and you're hungry right now. I can tell. You start creeping up towards it, but you're like, man, the second you get in that thing, whack. And, I'll say this isn't like a mousetrap that's going to kill you, but maybe something that comes down and just traps you in a cage. You're just going to be trapped there. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get your 2 playoff spots, and then that is it. You're going to be trapped there. It'll be limited. Upward mobility kind of goes away. The other part of this, and I'm glad it was mentioned by Jack Trice Mafia at some point there, is the second that you do it, SEC goes to 9 conference games. SEC and Big Ten start a scheduling agreement with each other. They're going to lock you out from ever playing them. And the rich get richer. They monopolize it even more as they want more emphasis on strength of schedule with everything. Good luck ever getting any kind of at-large bid outside of that. You take that, it's done. They grow even closer together, and the monopoly grows. And that's why this really is a mousetrap. And it's set up for, hey, on the outside, this really looks great. That's a huge hunkin' piece of cheese. Why would you not take it? You got to watch out for the dangers. Seems too good to be true almost, right? That's because it is. That's because you would be signing up to say, we are half of these conferences, and you can't do that. So it's actually taking a lot of discipline here, man. I would say this is taking a lot of discipline from Brett Yormark, the Big 12, the ACC, really everybody, but especially the Big 12 and the ACC. They're the ones that this would affect the most. They're the ones on the front line the most with this. It takes a lot of gumption to say, well, man, think about how much this could suck over the next 5-6 years on that next contract if 5+11 is in there, but we got to preserve the ability long-term to compete more than just that. We can't seal our fate forever to that right now. And for that, we're going to have the willpower to not go for it quick. This is, everybody these days, you can read so much research about this, different books. I get Instagram ads about it every day. Is your dopamine, do you need a dopamine detox? Everybody goes for the short little dopamine hits these days. Instead of trying to work for something long-term that will provide you really good, legitimate dopamine after you accomplish it, we get distracted by just being on our phones and looking for the next dopamine hit of the next notification that somebody liked your Instagram post, right? Big 12's not going for the cheap, quick dopamine hit here. They're waiting for the long-term satisfaction. This is writing a book, something that will take a while, but could provide much better benefits long-term. It's eating your vegetables. Eating your vegetables instead of just grabbing the fast food, or like waiting to come home and cook a nice meal instead of hitting up McDonald's on the way home. And I just wish there was a little bit more of that in all the discussion of this. I wish there was a little bit more recognition of that for the Big 12 and what they're doing here. Like, this is not easy. It also may be, if you believe our Webb's theory there that it was kind of a poison pill thrown out by Brett Yormark because he knew it would get the Big Ten and the SEC fighting with each other, then perhaps it's not just a strong willpower type of move, but it is also very much a move that was smart and calculated and clever. So there are a lot of superlatives here that I think could be used, and I wish there was more talk of it. But I mean, a part of the problem here is nobody really cares about the Big 12 angle on it. And if I could just pontificate a bit about why I hope that you'll keep coming back to this channel and why I hope you will subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, that angle, what this means or says about the Big 12, doesn't mean enough nationally for people to really get that down in the weeds for it. And this is, I'm not blaming them. This whole back and forth, the Jack Trice Mafia thing, he had called out Josh Pate for not talking about the Big 12 enough on his show. I have said this before. I'll say it again. Like, I completely understand. I mean, he's got to do what drives interest in his show, which if you're a national college football show, particularly one with him, where like he grew up in SEC country, he's naturally going to have a pretty big SEC following. Like, yeah, Big 12 stuff is, it's not going to, I'm going to say not going to rate, which is not really a great term for YouTube. It's not going to draw the eyeballs that you want. So you do have to kind of work around that. And that's not saying that, you know, total sellout, slave to the system, whatever. No, I mean, like, you're trying to build a popular show. You want people to see your show. I do the same thing. It skews sometimes more towards like a BYU. They have a massive fan base. So sometimes I might talk about a BYU topic that I wouldn't talk about otherwise for other schools, because I know there's more interest there in it on this channel. I try to serve the viewership that is here. We all do that. But the problem, if you have a real issue with that, is just that we now live in a college football atmosphere, an environment, an ecosystem where nobody is rewarded for talking about the ACC or the Big 12. They're rewarded for talking about those two big conferences because the TV networks and Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, Kevin Warren, going back to those days, like, they rated everybody else. They pulled in all the big brands. They set up this monopoly, and then that's what it is. If you're going to cover the sport from a national level, if you want viewership, if you want most of the interest, you're going to have to do that. So they're not going to care to dive that deep into it, but I will here, and I will make that point. I guess that's why it's my show. I get to raise that point. Credit to the Big 12 for having some real discipline here, I think, in the way that they have handled this. And now it's very interesting how this has played out, that it's completely sent this back to scratch. Remember, the SEC and the Big Ten, it is written into that contract. They have the power to just force through whatever it is that they want. They do legally, yes, and there was legal action threatened. They do have to listen effectively enough to the Big 12 and ACC. They've now tabled everything and gone back to zero. I would think that's probably going to satisfy a lot of that. I mean, they can come back with whatever it is that they want. If they really wanted to force feed whatever it was down the Big 12's throat, they could have done it. They haven't. And that is a win. Minor win for now for the Big 12. That really, really took some discipline. Please like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all the guys who do that. It's totally free. Many of you who watch do not subscribe. I see the numbers, people. So please, please do. I would appreciate that. I'd appreciate that a lot. You can also submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box in order to do that. If you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, you can hit me up on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4, if you are not able to catch this live and you want to leave a question or comment there. I'll kick off the next show with it. Okay. Oh, yes. So, recruiting news. I don't talk a ton of recruiting here, but this one everybody can understand. Iowa State lost its blue chip quarterback to Alabama this week. Class of 2026, it's not something that seems out of left field, right? Iowa State losing a quarterback to Bama. Like, people get it. They understand that's not some totally, totally wild thing. The question I have here is, how negative of a message does this send about the Big 12's place in the world? That Iowa State, a team that just played for the Big 12 championship last year, has a quarterback that right now seems destined probably for the NFL. Great college quarterback who was throwing to a couple of NFL wide receivers last year. They are getting usurped by Alabama. And the details on this matter, which I'm about to explain to you here. So is this an inevitability for many or most, perhaps all, teams in the Big 12 here? I'm going to read to you a little bit from the ESPN story about this. So a record-setting quarterback from Omaha, Nebraska. Tamala. Damn it, I don't have his first name. What is Tamala's first name, Iowa State fans? I'm sorry to make you relive this. It is Jet. I was about to say Brett. I knew it wasn't at Jet Tamala. Cool name, honestly. I dig that. Jet Tamala, ESPN's number 18 quarterback in the latest cycle. He initially committed to Iowa State in April. So he commits to Iowa State in April. He does not even receive a scholarship offer from Alabama until May 15th. And then he's gone. That's how it works. If you are Alabama, you can come in a month after a kid is committed to another Power 4 school, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Tamala visited the Crimson Tide 2 weeks later. He connected with Kalen DeBoer, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, quarterback coach Nick Sheridan. Here is what Tamala said after that visit. Quote, "My dream is to go to the NFL. The resources around the place and all the eyes that are on you, I know I can develop there. Those coaches can be really good for my process of becoming the best quarterback I can be." Now, this is a key part of this story, all right? So after signing five-star dual threat Keelan Russell in the 2025 cycle, Alabama had largely stayed away from the top end of the passer market in 2026 before stepping up its efforts this past spring. Keep that part in mind. That part, I think, is very, very important here. So, look, like Iowa State's going to be fine. This is not a segment about like, oh, man, Iowa State football is screwed. What is Iowa State ever going to do? Like, Rocco Becht was a 3-star quarterback. I looked up. I mean, he did have an Ole Miss offer listed, but other than that, it was a bunch of nobodies. Damn it. What did I do with my notes? There we go. Wake Forest, Marshall, Southern Miss. Ole Miss, Wake Forest, Marshall, Southern Miss for the Rocco Becht offer sheet. That was not the guy. J.J. Cole was the guy, which speaks to one. I mean, Matt Campbell's ability to go out and find good quarterbacks. J.J. Cole was the Elite 11 blue chip quarterback. Now he's transferred to App State because he couldn't beat out Rocco Becht because they recruited another quarterback that was better, that was less heralded. So, like, Iowa State will be fine. They'll find a quarterback. They can coach him up. This is not the end of the world there. But to me, it's more about like kind of the symbolism of how this went down that you really have to hate about it. Because, look, I laid out the timeline there. Like, you can put all this investment into it and get the kid early, be the first on him. He's out of the Omaha area. They beat Nebraska to the punch. Get him signed up, get him locked up. He's committed for a month. Bama comes in and is like, well, yeah, I guess we'll offer. And it's not just that. This is a Bama that, as it was pointed out in the article, had been like, well, you know, we signed a great 5-star quarterback last year. I don't know if do we really need to dip back into it in 26? Do we need to put a lot of resources there? Maybe. And then kind of after a while, they're like, yeah, okay, fine. You know, this kid seems worthy, I suppose. Yeah, we'll go get him. Nice luxury item. And instead of like, hey, you know, like we need a quarterback, like this is a regular meal that I need to eat every day. This is like Alabama being like, hey, you know, do we want sprinkles on the cupcake today? Or do we want to just go regular cup? Now, you know, I think I'd like sprinkles. So, okay, yeah, see if we can get those sprinkles over there. That's really what it is to Bama here. And that's the frustrating part. You know, they can still just come in, scoop it up like that when he's not really the priority there. And the NFL thing, I mean, look, Iowa State's, I don't know if you guys have noticed, they've got a really highly paid quarterback in the NFL right now. His name's Brock Purdy. Like, if the quote from the kid is, I'm worried about how he'll develop for the NFL, Brock Purdy just became a multi-millionaire with a massive contract. He has played for a Super Bowl championship. And, oh, by the way, they just developed receivers to the point where they had guys go in the second and third round last year, the 2 top targets there. They also have been a great place churning out tight ends. They've got tight ends in the NFL. Like, I don't know, man. Iowa State's got a pretty damn good selling point there as far as what you could become at the next level going through that program. And again, you still can just be Alabama's sprinkles. I guess another thing I would point out here for the specific Iowa State part of it is that they could get him back. I mean, this could be a bounce back. The thing that you have to remember in recruiting these days with the transfer portal is like, hey, you finish second, better be nice to the kid because he very well could get to Bama and decide in a year, yeah, this isn't working out. I'm behind Keelan Russell. I'm behind whoever. I'm not going to get to play. Maybe I should have just gone to Iowa State in the first place and they could bounce back. So keep that in mind. But I don't love how all this seemingly went down and what that could mean for other Big 12 schools. Because look, if it can happen to Iowa State right now, it could happen to damn near anybody. I think the Big 12 has done a great job at, for the most part, keeping its high-profile stars away from the transfer portal. We saw that this year with all the pursuit of the different quarterbacks in the Big 12, Sam Leavitt, Josh Hoover, Avery Johnson, Oregon giving some pursuit to Leavitt, Tennessee perhaps coming after all three. Rocco Becht, another one you could throw in there that there was an On3 report about. Big 12's done a pretty good job of keeping guys that are actually there on the roster, which, I think that's one thing. If they're on the roster and they're producing, they're going to get a big NIL check, especially at a key position like quarterback. So you probably got a little more in terms of your hooks in them. They've also been there, seen the program, know what it is. You have the advantage of the familiarity with that. It's a little bit harder when they haven't actually been there and played, and you're in this situation trying to reel in the high school recruit. So I do think this is something to watch out for. You kind of always have to keep your head on a swivel these days in college football, all the time for everybody, but especially if you are a Big 12 or ACC school here trying to protect your upper level talent, your high level quarterbacks from getting swiped up like that. So kind of sucks, but it is what it is. It is what it is right now for the clones of the Big 12. Thank you all for being here. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who does that. Subscribe for the Open for Business to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. That's at ofbnews.com. 4,400 plus Big 12 fans reading it twice a week to your inbox for free. Totally free. Just sign up at ofbnews.com. Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 if you want to leave me a question or comment there. You can also create a super chat in the chat if you're here live by clicking the $sign below the chat box if you so please. I appreciate all of you who do that. I've got one more topic for you tonight. And that is, I'm calling it kind of like a buy low, sell high, sort of a Big 12 stock report here based on a couple of rankings that I saw this week. So 2 rankings / projections that came out this week that have really driven home a couple things to me about the Big 12. It actually has me to the point where I'm about to hate on my favorite team and I'm about to hype up one of its most hated rivals. Okay, so strap it in. Buckle up here for this segment. We're going to start with a guy that I really like and enjoy, Kelly Ford. He's become one of the better statistical models out there in college football that people really pay attention to. I very much respect him, think he does a great job. But he put out his Big 12 projections this week. So read them and weep. Here we go. Make sure I get that full screen for you. Okay. So here you go. K-State, all right, it just barely fits. K-State is his projected Big 12 champ, okay? K-State, the projected Big 12 champ at just under 9 wins. You can see there what you have the rest of the chart is the percentage chance that the team would win that many games. So K-State winning at least 7 games, 95%, at least 8, 84%, all the way up to the model projects 63% likelihood K-State would win 9 games. Nobody else has a better than 50-50 shot at winning 9 games, according to this model. K-State, Texas Tech, Arizona State, your top 3. BYU is at number 4. West Virginia, Arizona, Oklahoma State, Houston, all bringing up the rear there at the bottom. Now, first and foremost, a lot of things you can draw here that are very much playing to the Big 12 stereotypes. 9 teams, if you count that up, 9 teams have a 65% or better chance of going 7-5. That doesn't sound like the most Big 12 thing ever. I don't know what is. Like, hey, you're going to have a bunch of teams between like 7 and 9 wins. Yeah, we know. And nobody has a 36% chance. Nobody has a better than 36% chance of winning 10. So it's like everybody will be bunched up from 7 to 10 wins. That's kind of the vibe here that you get from these projections. I said earlier on BYU, probably hard to factor in Jake Retzlaff, I would imagine, to this formula when you don't know for sure if he's not going to play. So you probably just keep it going like normal, right? And that means BYU still right up there in the top 4 and not too far back of K-State. Utah, respect, does not surprise me. But what's interesting here is go look at Iowa State and Baylor at 8 and 9. Iowa State and Baylor. Woof. That seems very low. That seems very low. A lot of value if you're basing it just on Kelly Ford here. I don't think you'll be able to get that in any sports book, but if you're basing it on Kelly Ford, that's a lot of value, man, on Iowa State and Baylor, two teams that I think can be very, very good here. All right. So there's part of this. Keep that in mind. Now, let's take a peek at the Athlon top 25. I don't have any cool graphic to show you here, but Athlon Sports preview mags, they're out. I actually bought one. Shout out to Athlon, which, hey, respect. Been reading it forever. I will pay you guys. I'll pay Phil Steele. But man, these things are getting expensive. These magazines are like $20 now. Remember when they used to be like $8? What happened to that? Anyway, Athlon's top 25. 4 Big 12 teams are ranked. K-State at 13, Arizona State at 14, Texas Tech at 22, Iowa State at 23. Arizona State at 14 does not surprise me. I would have thought for sure that would be the highest ranked Big 12 team. I don't know that I've seen K-State quite as high as 13 from anybody yet. It's a lot of K-State love, and I just showed you, hey, they were picked by Kelly Ford to they have the most likely odds anyway. I shouldn't say picked. According to Kelly Ford's model, they have the best chance to win the league. Now, look, obviously, love my squad. Love the Cats. I mean, you can see behind me. Shout out to my guy, Josh, who made the Everyman a Wildcat that you can see up at the top there. You should go find him on Twitter. Josh War, I believe, is Warr. He'll make you some great, great stuff. But I'm a K-State guy, all right? I don't know about this, man. I mean, I've been saying I think K-State's a 9-3 type of team, so I guess the 9 wins fits. But to have them as the 13th best team in the country or definitive favorite, I'm not saying that Kelly Ford's model has them as the definitive favorite, but if you're picking them as the favorite to win the league, to me, it's just like, first of all, there's not much value there. So if we're doing like a stock too high, stock too low, buy, sell sort of thing, I'm not even really saying that I would say sell K-State stock, but it's not one to buy based on what I've seen from preseason projections, just because it's already really high. And it's really high for a team that I think has a lot of talent. Believe me, I love the roster, but you need Avery Johnson to take a step forward in a year where he'll be playing with a third offensive coordinator in 3 years. You'd need Avery Johnson to take a significant step forward for it all to work. Otherwise, it's not going to work well enough to be much more than what they were last year. If you really want to get into the weeds, I mean, K-State lost a couple of NFL defensive backs. They lost the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year. One of those defensive backs, Jacob Parrish, I just saw report out of Tampa was that it looks like he may have a chance to start as a rookie right away. So pretty good defensive backs that you just lost. And you're going to be plugging in a lot of, I think, again, very talented, but offensive lineman transfers with a new offensive line coach this year. I mean, there are some real question marks there. And it's a tough start to the season with that game in Ireland, which I think will tell so much about what the K-State and Iowa State season is going to be. I think that's a massive game, and we'll talk a lot more about it as it gets close. But that is a massive game for both of those teams in the league, two teams that I think very much should be considered Big 12 title contenders. But on the flip side of this, man, there are some teams, based on what I've seen this preseason, whose stock seems way too low. And like number one to me is Baylor. Some people are hip to this game. Like I think people that have paid closer attention to the Big 12 are a little more hip to this game. But like Sawyer Robertson, dude, is a great quarterback. That offense is explosive and fun. Dave Aranda seemed to be getting the defense better. It seemed to be on the right path. If you believe in them injecting a little bit more talent, more life, and just improving with a defensive coach, man, it's tough not to get really excited about Baylor. And when you start seeing them they're at number 9 in Kelly Ford's model, number 9 in the Big 12, I would take all the stock. Just give me all the stock to bet on Baylor finishing higher than 9th in the Big 12. Guarantee that. I would also say like TCU. TCU was at 6 in that model. I'm not seeing TCU in any top 25s for sure. I think most feel like they are a pretty middle of the pack Big 12 team, but Josh Hoover, Josh Hoover might be the most undervalued player in the conference. The dude threw for almost 4,000 yards last year. He is a baller. He can really play. And if you're looking at the 24/7 talent composite, which just takes every player on the team's rosters and then ranks them by like what their sheer talent is based on recruiting pedigree, TCU's number one in the conference in the talent composite. So ostensibly, you're saying TCU has the best roster in the Big 12 and maybe the best quarterback. Certainly a guy who's in that conversation in Josh Hoover. Why are they being undervalued so much? Why is there no talk about them being a top 25 team? Now, I would come back and say, well, people probably have some doubts about Sonny Dykes. I have some doubts about Sonny Dykes. Understood. There's also the schedule. And this is one thing you do definitely have to understand about TCU. They have two tough non-con games where they play SMU at home. They go to UNC week 1, Bill Belichick. Have fun with the media attention there. But then they've got to go to Arizona State. They have to go to K-State. They have to go to BYU. And they've got Baylor and Colorado at home. So that is a really tough schedule for TCU. I will concede that in this discussion, but I think we should at least acknowledge, again, if you're looking for a team to like buy low on, TCU fits that bill. Tough schedule, yes, but a lot of the ingredients are there and something to really, really like. And then, Iowa State, if you're telling me again, like Kelly Ford's model has them at 8th, you're telling me I can get Iowa State like, hey, just give me whatever it is. How much money do I have to put down? Take out a second mortgage on my home, like on Iowa State finishing better than 8th in the Big 12 this year. I do have questions there, right? Can Rocco Beck still thrive to the extent that he did last year or close to it without two elite college wide receivers who are now playing in the NFL? That's a legitimate question mark. But they have a returning quarterback who has proven himself to be very good in this league. And they have a defensive coordinator who is about as consistent as it gets. And just, that John Heacock is going to churn out a really good defense. That combo is pretty tough to bet against. I mean, that's why I'm so high on Utah. I think they'll have a good quarterback, and I think they'll have a good defense with a defensive coordinator, Morgan Scalley, who does it every single year. And Kyle Whittingham is a defensive coach who does it literally every single year. Iowa State needs their transfer receivers to hit, for sure. But I think it's a pretty safe bet that they would finish higher than 8th in the conference. So just some observations based on all these rankings that I am seeing preseason right now. I think that's my feel right now for like teams that I think maybe a touch high. And I hate to say it. Texas Tech might be another one, a smidge too high, just because some people are really, I think like Andy Staples, maybe Ari Wasserman also, some people having them like in the top 15. I need to see it. You guys know my stance on Texas Tech. I got to see it first. I understand the logic behind that. I need to see it actually play out before I start getting there. That'd be another one just because their stock has risen so much. There's probably just not a lot of value in it right now. But those are, I guess, 5 teams that give you a little bit of a stock update on. I see Kim saying Baylor's got the easiest schedule in Big 12 history. Let's go look at that. If it really is that easy, that would make even the Kelly Ford analysis on Baylor sound even crazier. Well, they've got Auburn. That's right. Man, so Baylor's got Auburn and at SMU in the non-con. I did not realize the SMU part of that. Well, 3 of those first 4 games are tough. I mean, Baylor starts the year with Auburn, at SMU, Samford, and then against Arizona State. It's a hell of a home schedule. K-State's coming to Waco too. Utah's coming to Waco. That's a great sign up for your Baylor Bears season tickets. Let me just do the ad for Baylor right now. It's a great year to be a Baylor season ticket holder. But so Big 12 schedule, they've got Arizona State, they've got K-State, they've got Utah. Those games are tough. I will give you the rest. I mean, at Oklahoma State, at TCU, especially rivalry game, that'll be tough. At Oklahoma State, at Cincinnati, UCF, at Arizona, Houston. I mean, there is a lot of projected bottom half of the Big 12 there. I don't think it's like the easiest ever, but there is a piece of that is, about half of that's really, really manageable. Really, really manageable. Oh, the last thing I was going to leave you with, because I was thinking about that. Hey, projected Big 12 standings doesn't really mean much because we saw what happened last year. Somebody, and I forgot to retweet it. I'm upset that I did because I wanted to go back and reference it today for the show and for the newsletter. But somebody out there, somebody send this to me if you see it, and I appreciate whoever did it. I'll give you a shout out if I can find it. I don't know what they used for their specific projections, but it said left side is like, here's the Big 12 projections for this year. And I don't know if it was Athlon or somebody else that came out this week. Here's the projections for the Big 12 this year. And on the right side, here's what it would look like if it's played out the same way that last year did in terms of where teams in the preseason poll finished. And it was crazy. I believe UCF won the Big 12 in this one. So that is a great exercise to point out how crazy last year was, how completely zany last year was in the Big 12. And I would love to. We need to do this for sure when we get the Big 12 media preseason poll. We need to do that for sure. Match those up, see what it looks like or would look like. And I'm sure I'll be talking about that here on the show. So anyway, it's going to do it for me. Appreciate you guys. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel on your way out. That would mean the world to me. Thank you, everybody. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com to get signed up and subscribed there. John Neskurtz-4 on Venmo. If you have a question or comment, you're not here live, drop me a line there and I will kick off the next show with it. And with that, I will bid you guys adieu. Have a great rest of your week and into the weekend. I will be talking to you all very soon. Take care.